Welcome, friends,
to the How-To Heretic.
I'm Uncle Mark.
And I'm Uncle Dan.
And this is your user's guide to life on the outside.
You betcha. Leaving religion is the first step into a larger, better world.
But it can also be a scary world. Things work differently now.
Never fear. That's why we're here.
We're your audio uncles. And with help from good friends and experts in all sorts of fields,
we're going to share the stories and seek the knowledge to build a great life.
After all, you only get one that we know of, so you better make the most of it.
Damn straight.
Well, Uncle Dan, we have somehow survived to episode 50.
It's an apocalypse. It's going to happen.
50 stars.
Round numbers are scary.
50 shades of Dan. I don't know what to make of the number, but here we are.
Here we are.
We made it without any kind of major schism.
From 13 original colonies.
That's right. Come 50
episodes.
Over-empowered states because every stupid state gets 2 senators. So put that in your pipe and smoke it, friends.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, so we're going to talk about a few things on today's show. You, sir, are going to introduce us to a lovely concept that the Mormons made up that makes 0 sense, but lots of murder.
Yeah, you're going to want your latex gloves and a whole lot of bleach after this one.
Oh, my God. It's Dexter times a million.
And then I believe Uncle Doug is going to describe to us an excellent new advertising rollout.
Yes, yeah. Super great, super effective.
Cutting edge, smart.
Yeah, exactly.
Really great stuff. And then you're going to talk to us about, we're going to meet a new group of people who lie somewhat to the east.
They're not new. They're a very
definitely
old
not new
group of people. And we're gonna meet a group of believers. They got some fun tricks coming up their sleeve, though. We'll talk about that.
Oh, cool. I love it.
When we do that one. So let's, should we just dive right in?
Let's dive right in, but I was going to say...
that's right. We've got a thing. Let's not dive right in.
Really quickly for our new listeners and our old listeners who may have some favorite segments. We had a little oversight where we did not make our website searchable by keyword, and that has been fixed. So
yeah, you put in a whole bunch of work on that, and boy, do I appreciate you.
No problem. So if there's a segment you like or one that you're looking for, you can probably easily find it on the website in our search function. So I hope that helps everybody love their uncles just a little bit more.
Yeah. Speaking of searchable, let's put out some searchable content.
Let us search for the truth.
Indeed.
Uncle Dan?
Yes, sir.
How are you?
Man, I'm living large.
Living large?
Large and in charge.
You know, sometimes out there in the world, there's some cows that need a slaughtering.
Well, absolutely.
The burger's got to come from somewhere.
Vegans, vegan sentiment aside,
and remember,
some cows need killing.
And remember that to do it at the threshold of the tabernacle is a sweet savor unto the Lord.
It is indeed. It is indeed. And I think we have a sacred cow to slaughter.
A particularly sacred cow.
And Uncle Mark, you're gonna bring us this particular one.
This one's a real delight, guys. And boy, sometimes when you're really drilling into the research on this stuff, you're like, "Ooh,
you thought you knew,
and you thought you knew, and then you didn't really know, and you're like, wow, it's way worse than I thought." So,
and this one's a Mormon themed cow, is it?
This is a Mormon themed cow. So this will be of great interest to the listeners in the Mormon spectrum and here in the Beehive State. But I think it'll be.
Oh, you're all gonna like this one.
This is gonna be shockingly fucked up to anybody, any of our listeners. So, and I might say 2 things. I would say there is violent content in this particular piece. So if you are squeamish about extreme violence against human beings, there's a couple of moments where your butt might pucker. And I would also say this is one of those segments that if you know someone who may be interested in joining the Mormon Church, play this segment. Right? This might just sew it up.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm glad you did a trigger warning though, because as we found out last week, there are actually kids who listen to this show. Yeah. So yeah, and
you know what though? I mean, blanket trigger warning.
Yeah.
On the show.
Yeah, exactly.
Trigger warning. I don't know why we're separating this show from all of our other episodes.
We should just call it the trigger warning with Mark and Dan and Doug. So.
That's right. That's our spin-off show.
All right. So, you know, when our listeners outside the Beehive State think of Utah,
Which they always do.
They're constantly thinking of their dear uncles. But maybe they think about the skiing, or maybe they're aware of the skiing.
Sure. Greatest snow on earth, my friends. Snow on earth.
Maybe if they're of a generation, they think about the Osmonds, or certainly Mitt Romney.
Yeah. Although Mitt's not, he's an alien to our
carpetbagger is what they call him.
Yeah. Where's his birth certificate?
Right.
And so that's those two groups are just a human ocean of gleaming white teeth.
Right.
And maybe they think about our friends, the Mormons, of course, because that's what everybody knows about Utah.
Yeah.
And they likely imagine a bland and anodyne place that's a land of casseroles and overlarge blonde families admiring handmade quilts at a country fair, perhaps.
Yes.
But what they may...
And they're not wrong.
And that's all true. But what they may not imagine is that Utah was the only state to have beheading, as a legal form of deterrence on the books, and that Utah not only happily maintains the practice of capital punishment, but kept death by firing squad on the books until 2004, and the last bound, blindfolded person to be legally shot at close range by 4 men in Utah was in 2010, because his request was grandfathered in.
Yeah.
So
love it.
What in the world could possibly explain a people so squeaky clean and outwardly joyful, maintaining so primitive and violent a set of practices? 2 words, Uncle Dan.
Yes, sir.
Blood atonement.
Blood atonement? How is that a thing?
So today's magic word...
The fuck you say?
In the sacred cow category is Mormon blood atonement. So the seeds of what would become Mormon blood atonement lay throughout the New Testament.
Sure.
By accepting the divinity of Jesus and the proxy human sacrifice and the blood of the Son of God, there is a path to redemption and the forgiveness of sins. By accepting the shedding of Jesus' blood, your sins may be forgiven. And when you think about it, it's a super weird concept.
It's a disastrous concept.
Yeah. It's a super weird concept, but it's one that is so foundational to Christianity, and it's been around for so long, it kind of doesn't feel like a crazy idea anymore.
No, they don't even question it.
Yeah.
We don't even question it.
Even though it's a crazy fucking idea.
It's so stupid. It's like Doug Stanhope said, I stubbed my toe for your mortgage.
Right.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Right. And yet
thanks, question mark?
He died for our sins, yet we can still sin. It doesn't and it's human sacrifice, and it's every fucked up stupid thing in the world. But that is the Christian concept.
Yes.
Right.
Very important.
It's the foundational Christian concept.
It is just, it's Christianity distilled down to a single sentence.
Right.
Pretty much. Yeah. So as you'll see, the Mormons took this concept in a sort of different direction, and there's some really surprising moments in here. A little sip of water. All this blood is making me thirsty. Mormonism at its root is what's called a restorationist faith.
Indeed.
A movement that is also described as Christian primitivism. Lucky for those of us who grew up in it. It's the idea that Christianity must return to its earliest, most primitive principles and the original apostolic structure of the church. So Joseph Smith and Brigham Young and the rest of the early church elders were always speaking about a return to biblical habits. Temple building,
sure,
polygamy,
right,
total theocracy, and retributive punishments for crimes.
Sure.
So while Mormonism...
Eye for an eye kind of stuff.
Eye for an eye. So while Mormonism certainly does lean heavily on Jesus and the books of the New Testament, the heart of Mormonism lies very much in the bloodiest tales of punishment and revenge in the Old Testament. As Dan said, eyes for eyes, tooths for tooths, and blood for blood. The term blood atonement doesn't appear anywhere, surprisingly, in the 4 accepted books of Mormon canon.
Interesting.
The term blood atonement.
The term blood atonement. The idea is there, but
right.
not as, not codified in the term. So terms like blood for blood and spilled blood cries out for retribution do appear in the books. The Book of Mormon also states that the law of Moses demands capital punishment for the crime of murder. Quick aside for any new or never Mormon listeners who are not familiar with the Book of Mormon. The Book of Mormon is a fictional fever dream written by Joseph Smith. It claims to be an account of ancient America in the time of Christ and in the years following. It is a laughably unsupportable work of bad faith. In short, Native Americans are not descended from Israelites who bobbed to Guatemala in a flotilla of unpowered wooden submarines with corks in the bottom and magic glowing rocks for reading lights inside. All those absurdities and more are truth claims in the Book of Mormon. So that's how seriously you should take any command for capital punishment in it. And again, for Never Mormon listeners, the author of this book of Balderdash and the founder of Mormonism is Joseph Smith.
Yeah.
In his many graphs and plagiarisms, he either misunderstood the New Testament point about the proxy blood of Jesus and bloodshed generally, or just fully ignored it in favor of creating a new extrajudicial mechanism for forcing his will on his taciturn flock. So either way, the bigamist, polygamist, borrower and coercer of other men's wives and their young daughters and all their property found himself very much blood atoned by a furious mob of his ex-followers at the Carthage, Illinois jail in June of 1844.
Ain't that the truth?
His cell was attacked. Shots from hidden guns were fired, and I believe Han shot first.
Yeah.
And Joseph fell out the window and crawled to lean against a well as his blood poured out onto the ground in an irony that he probably was able to appreciate, I hope, in that moment. So
no. None of that irony was appreciated by him at all.
And then our story takes an even bloodier turn because the second prophet and president of the church who took over after a brief power struggle was none other than Brigham Young.
The Stalin of Mormonism.
Yeah.
/ Miscavige.
Right, exactly.
He is the Miscavige
Exactly.
of Mormonism. Why, it's such a pattern, isn't it?
100% it's a pattern.
100%,
Absolutely.
yep. So both Joseph and Brigham Young were fervent proponents of blood atonement, but Brigham was the ferventer. Vengeance would become one of Brigham Young's defining characteristics. And if you don't believe me, another time we can talk about the oath of vengeance he added to the Nauvoo temple ceremony, a ceremony that already included ritual murder gestures of slicing throats and spilling guts.
Just gestures, though.
Just come on, guys.
Calm down.
It's just
Nobody's actually murdering people in the temple that we know of.
It's just a little bit of theater.
Yeah, well, you got to have a little theater.
Did you wait, Doug? Did you draw the thumb across?
They
the
had removed
neck?
those
In the 90s.
Yeah, before I came along.
But right before.
But like right before. I think
was,
a few years before.
Yeah, if we were all 10 years older, you would have done that thing.
And you made a promise to avenge the blood of the prophets, and you drew your
and if I reveal the secrets of the temple, may my blood be spilled and my
I think it was 93.
Whatever.
I'd have to look it up, but I think it was 93 that they got rid of the ritual fucking bloodletting and gut spilling.
Yeah.
But they only got rid of the ritual part. They didn't get rid of the real part. So anyway, and also what probably animated Brigham Young's sense of vengeance was the murder of his beloved prophet, Joseph Smith. Probably turned his bloodlust up to 11. So lucky for him, Joseph had already laid the doctrinal pipe to pump all of this blood through. So as Joseph imagined it and Brigham Young codified it, Mormon blood atonement was a mechanism for saving the soul of a person who had sinned, and the redemptive qualities of Jesus' blood were not enough to sort him out in the next life. So
Jesus can only bleed so much. He's one guy.
I love that there's a line. It's like, no, not good enough.
He is the
read paragraph 7.
Most abundantly hemophiliac Jew of all time. So the sinner's own blood must be spilled, all of it basically, or at least enough until they're dead, to save their soul beyond the veil. It's extrajudicial theocratic murder by vigilantes after a secret vote by church elders, and it's considered an act of love.
Yeah.
It's actually considered an act of love.
You call it murder. They call it redemption.
Yeah, and as I'm sure you'll go into, it can't just be, you can't poison them.
No,
you can't hang them.
Right, and that's why
they got to bleed.
The church was not super happy about hanging being a choice in the early years of the state as capital punishment because it didn't properly spill your blood.
Didn't bleed them.
Didn't bleed them. So what crimes are so heinous that Jesus himself cannot forgive you? Well, most obviously and most confusingly, murder, since expiating that sin also involves murder. But also the most egregious crime, miscegenation. The absolutely forbidden mixing of the perfect white race with any son or daughter of Cain.
Oh, really?
Meaning black people. That is by far the worst.
Holy shit.
According to Brigham Young, and I will expound on this, was the worst crime you could possibly commit. And if you don't believe me, there's more on that in a jiff. But also, you could be blood atoned for blasphemy, apostasy, we're all fucked, adultery, theft, I'm fucked again, fornication, fucked, naturally expressing satisfaction or happiness about the murder of Joseph Smith. Just saying I'm glad he's dead was enough to get you decapitated.
Wow.
So Joseph Smith bizarrely claimed, I had never heard this before. Joseph Smith bizarrely claimed that the Apostle Peter from the Bible had appeared to him to tell him that Judas had not hung himself, as the biblical account would have us believe, but that Peter and the other apostles had killed him to atone for betraying Jesus. Did you know that?
I didn't. No, I never heard that.
Never heard that.
It's crazy.
Peter was like, Joseph, wake up. I forgot to tell you.
Hey, just quick FYI. You got to hear this because this was hilarious.
One more story before you go to sleep. I promise it's short.
No, you hang up.
So in 1857, Heber C. Kimball, a member of the first presidency of the church at the time and one of the top 3 leaders, confirmed this vengeful act of extrajudicial lex talionis. That's actually a legal term meaning a retributive punishment matching the nature of the crime.
Oh, I see.
Say it again.
Lex talionis.
Cool.
Yeah.
Lex Luthor's.
Look at the brains on Uncle Mark. That the apostles applied this crazy thing, and he talked about it in a speech at General Conference. And I quote Heber C. Kimball here. Judas lost that saving principle. He did not say, and that loving feeling. And they took him and killed him. It is said that his bowels gushed out. But they, meaning the other apostles, kicked him until his bowels came out.
Wow.
I know the day is right at hand when men will forfeit their priesthood and turn against us and against the covenants they have made, and they will be destroyed as Judas was.
Whoa. Oh, I see.
So the other 11 apostles kicked him to pieces.
Yeah.
Is the idea here.
History's first curb stomping.
Somebody needs to invent a knife for these guys because that's a way better than...
That's a lot of work, especially with a sandal.
Yeah.
A sandaled foot. If you had steel toes.
You know what, though? You sharpen those sandals up.
Sharp sandal.
You're going to get a nice clean cut. That's going to be good.
It's going to be merciful for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this bizarre reworking of the events surrounding the biblical account of the crucifixion is credited with being the origin of Mormon blood atonement. In addition, the Book of Mormon account of Nephi decapitating the unconscious Laban, as discussed in episode 43 at God's command, has also frequently been cited by people when they have practiced blood atonement. Just a year prior to Heber C. Kimball's speech, here is the prophet himself, Brigham Young, explaining the principle in no uncertain terms.
Okay.
And I quote, "It is true that the blood of the Son of God was shed for sins through the fall and those committed by men. Yet men can commit sins which it can never remit. There are sins that can be atoned for by an offering upon an altar, as in ancient days, as there are sins that the blood of a lamb or a calf or turtle doves and all the other 5 days, 12 days of Christmas cannot remit, but they must be atoned for by the blood of the man. This is the reason why men talk to you as they do from this stand. They understand the doctrine and throw a few words about it." In another sermon, Brigham Young made it plain, I'd never read this before, that a man could blood atone his own wife.
Of course he can, because if you can't support the patriarchy by allowing a guy to murder his wife every now and then.
Not surprised by that one.
Not surprised. Well, especially when you have 55, it's not like you're going to run out of wives.
Right, exactly.
But
every now and then you're going to want to get rid of one or two of them.
And I quote, "Let me suppose a case. Suppose you found your brother in bed with your wife and put a javelin through both of them."
A javelin?
A javelin. I don't know where the fuck you got a
You
javelin.
guys stay right there. I'll be back.
I've got to run down
I've got to go to the shed and find my javelin.
I've got to go to the sports cupboard. Oh, no, that's a discus. Well, it'll have to do. If you put a javelin through them, he continues, you would be justified, and they would atone for their sins and be received into the kingdom of God. I would at once do so in such a case and under such circumstances. I have no wife whom I love so much that I would not put a javelin through her heart, and I would do it with clean hands. I wonder if that was part of his wedding vows. And I promise to perforate your ass.
I do love you, but bitch, you turn on me and shit's going down.
I wonder if they hid his javelin from him.
Good night, honey. I'll kill you if you cheat on me.
Yeah. And he continues, "There's not a man or woman who violates the covenants made with their God that will not be required to pay the debt. The blood of Christ will never wipe that out. Your own blood alone must atone for it.
That is crazy.
Right.
That is cuckoo bananas.
And it's not even the craziest part. It's fucking insane.
Well, but what I mean, like, first of all, the theology's in place. God, Jesus did his bleeding thing, and everybody's covered. Like that, it says that in the Bible or something.
Yeah.
Why you would need to add that caveat that somehow, psych, not only is not everybody covered, but like adulterers aren't covered. Like lesser things, you laugh at Joe Smith's death, that's not covered. Like all
theft.
Right. Sure. That like nobody steals. That would be weird if people stole. No, that's like that's not covered.
No.
In Christ's atonement.
No.
Which, by the way, for those of you who have never been to a Mormon church, God bless you. You really don't need
Keep
to go.
that streak alive. Right.
But for those of you who don't know, these people talk constantly about how grateful they are for Jesus' atonement.
Yeah.
Like, they will not shut up about it. So apparently
It doesn't cover much.
it's woefully inadequate. This
Right.
is a pathetically bad atonement that he did.
I think it covers like wire fraud and aggravated jaywalking.
See, it's your basic warranty, right?
Yes, decapitation is part of the extended warranty.
Void where prohibited. This is does not cover certain things. See your dealer for details.
Right.
Let's
Read the fine print.
Let's go back to Brother Brigham, shall we? Because he's really provided nothing but
And he's such a peach.
he's such a peach. Remember when I said that miscegenation, the mixing of the races, was punishable by ecclesiastical murder?
I do remember when you said
And
that.
you, dear listeners, were probably like, "No way, Uncle Mark, that's too crazy to be true." I present, dear listeners, Prophet Brigham Young himself, and I quote. What did we get mixed up in this shit as kids? Like, shall I tell you the law of God in regard to the African race?
That is nothing good is coming.
No. Anyone ever says that?
You're not.
Anyone
gonna land
short
that
of
plane.
Louis Farrakhan says those words. Something horrible is coming.
This is the fundamentalist 19th century Mormon version of "I'm not a racist, but."
right.
And he continues, if the white man who belongs to the chosen seed mixes his blood with the seed of Cain, the penalty under the law of God is death on the spot. This will always be so.
Always.
So you're saying Richard Spencer is a Mormon?
He'd be very comfortable.
Yeah.
He'd be very comfortable.
Well, at least
similar haircuts.
At least in Brigham Young's Mormonism.
So Brigham Young taught that in the case of miscegenation with blacks, the children of that union should also be blood atoned.
Jesus.
Meaning that children should be fucking murdered. Wilford Woodruff, who became the fourth president of the Mormon Church, recorded in his journal an address delivered by Brigham Young in 1852. In this address, we find the following. Any man having one drop of the seed of Cain in him cannot hold the priesthood. I will say it now in the name of Jesus Christ. I know it's true, and they know it. The Negro cannot hold one particle of government. If any man mingles his seed with the seed of Cain, the only way he could get rid of it is to have salvation, and to have salvation would be to come forward and have his head cut off and spill his blood on the ground. It would also take the life of his children.
Jesus.
Holy cow. Well, wait, though. If he does have his head cut off, can he get the priesthood then?
He can receive exaltation.
There you
go.
How hard it is to cut off someone's head with a javelin.
Oh, but yeah, just poking. It's a really horrendous perforation process.
What you do is, you do a series of holes and then you just rip.
Here's all holes, and if they just like, look, guys, this is going to suck, but if you hold still, it's going to be a lot quicker. So just try not to wriggle. Try not to wriggle or gurgle. So remember, this is the second president and prophet of the Mormon Church and the founder and first governor of the state of Utah, fervently advocating the murder of mixed-race children. Just FYI, friends.
Jesus.
Holy crap. That is harsher, like, even with the worst concepts of, like, of mixed race whatever, even the American government had that sort of third crossing idea of, if there's a mixed race, half white, half black, and that guy's still black, but then if the product of that union has a child with a white person, and then the product of that union has a child with a white person, then finally the kid is white enough to be white, to be considered
when
white.
you start characterizing people's kind of race by counting their ancestors' races,
right,
you are in bad company.
Well,
you have some very bad neighbors.
Yeah.
Well, eugenics was considered a real science. I mean, it was that, and at the time, the race theory being and he's talking about one drop of African blood.
One drop. That's what I'm saying. Like he is super extreme, even in an extreme time.
Right. We all have one drop of African. We are all Africans.
Yeah.
Imagine we should go to his grave after this and have a little chat with him about, scientific understanding of the origins of human species. But anyway, let's leave the racism aside for a second, as fun as it is.
Yeah.
And it was racism really was the foundational animus that the real father of modern Mormonism, Brigham Young, was also motivated by. Mm-hmm. It seems that the most common charge for those who were in one way or another blood atoned was adultery. So, a little aside, John D. Lee was a super important character in the early church and the founding of what was going to be the Kingdom of the West. He was involved in a massacre of over 120 Arkansas pioneers who were headed west through Utah in 1857.
We're going to talk about that.
It's a long story that we're going to cover another time, but for the sake of brevity, this mass murder can also trace its motivations to the principle of blood atonement. It's believed Brigham Young ordered the extermination and that his trusted lieutenant, John D. Lee, just carried it out. But whatever happened, the feds came snooping around, of course, and a scapegoat was required. In short order, John D. Lee was himself blood atoned, shot by firing squad as he sat on the edge of his coffin. I don't know why it doesn't say that.
That is just smart thinking. Nobody has to move him into it. He just falls down into it.
He was a big man. He was a big man. You don't want to lug that around.
Right.
Just don't sit on the edge of your coffin. That's advice.
That's going to be part of the Utah Tourist Bureau campaign. Don't sit on the edge of your coffin. You won't get blood atoned. Best snow on earth. But before he was executed, but after his brutal betrayal by Brigham Young, Lee wrote an autobiography in which he spilled some bloody beans. Here is a remembrance of one of what was likely a large number of unrecorded, secretive blood atonings.
So, wait, you say it's a record of unrecorded blood atonement?
Yeah, I really tripped on my dick on that one. I'm sorry, guys. The error might actually qualify for my own blood atonement. So. And I'm quoting John D. Lee here. The most deadly sin among the people was adultery, and many men were killed in Utah for that crime. Rasmus Anderson was a Danish man who had come to Utah. He had married a widow lady, and she had a daughter that was fully grown at the time of the Reformation. The Reformation is basically when the Mormons arrived in Utah and were setting up their theocracy. The girl was very anxious to be sealed to her stepfather. At one of the meetings during the Reformation, Anderson and his stepdaughter confessed that they had committed adultery.
Oh, shit.
Believing when they did so that Brigham Young would allow them to marry after they confessed, when he learned the facts. Their confession being full, they were rebaptized and received into full membership.
Oh.
They were then placed under covenant that if they again committed adultery, Anderson should suffer death. Soon after this, a charge was laid against Anderson before the council, accusing him of adultery with his stepdaughter. This council was comprised of some guys, Klingenschmidt, his two counselors. It was the bishop's council. Without giving Anderson any chance to defend himself or make a statement, the council voted that Anderson must die for violating his covenants. Klingensmith went to Anderson and notified him that the orders were that he must die by having his throat cut, so that the running of his blood would atone for his sins. Anderson, being a firm believer in the doctrines and teachings of the Mormon Church, made no objections, but asked for half a day to prepare for death.
Holy shit.
His request was granted. His wife was ordered to prepare a suit of clean clothing in which to have her husband buried, and was informed that he was to be killed for his sins, and she was directed to tell those who should inquire after her husband that he had gone to California.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so
what a fun little wrinkle.
So she was coerced into the cover-up of her own husband's murder.
Yeah.
Klingensmith, James Haslam, Daniel McFarland, and John M. Higbee, whoever the fuck they were, dug a grave in the field near Cedar City, Utah. And that night, about 12 o'clock, they went to Anderson's house and ordered him to make ready to obey the council. Anderson got up, dressed himself, bid his family goodbye,
grabbed his best javelin,
just shaved his throat so it was nice and clean. You don't want to get an infection.
No.
And without a word of remonstrance, accompanied those that he believed were carrying out the will of Almighty God. They went to the place where the grave was prepared. Anderson knelt upon the side of the grave and prayed. Klingensmith and his company then cut Anderson's throat from ear to ear and held him so that his blood ran into the grave.
Jesus.
It then goes on to talk about how they dressed him in his funeral clothes and they tossed him in the grave.
Wait, they didn't dress him first?
No, because they'd be bloody.
Well, you can't bury a bloody guy in a bloody suit.
That's just
what are we, monsters?
That's a dick move, Dan.
It would be barbarism of the highest order. It's true.
And because they were such civilized men, they took the bloody clothes back and ordered his wife to wash them.
Oh my God!
Yeah,
because you know what?
Threw him on the porch.
Those would fit Brother Christiansen if they just got him clean.
He goes on to talk about how he knows of many such men to whom this was done. Not only in Utah, but along the way in Ohio.
Holy shit.
Well, I'll tell you, we'll talk about this when we get to the Mountain Meadows Massacre, but Cedar City in the mid-1800s was a scary fucking place.
Oh, because now it's awesome.
I actually really like Cedar City.
You like Cedar City?
A lot.
I hate Cedar City.
You just need to go with me. You'd have a
No, because you'll blood atone my ass.
Maybe. I don't know. Have
Mark,
you been...
sit right here on this pine box.
What's this long hole you've dug here?
I'm going to go about 100 yards away with my javelin. No reason.
No, just...
Oh, I like that he doesn't actually use it like a spear. He just hold it. He has to throw it because that's sporting.
Right. Absolutely. It's just, Mark, catch!
So it's important to note that no one knows how often this happened at the hands of random local church elders in the the far-flung Western Mormon Empire, and prior to moving west, it may have happened in New York, Ohio, Illinois, as John D. Lee referred to. And that in addition to this garden variety local murdering, Brigham Young had a couple full-on assassins, Porter Rockwell and Wild Bill Hickman, as well as the secret vigilante army, the Danites, that we're going to talk about another time, who are the instruments of Young's own vengeful
After
demise.
whom I was obviously named.
The Danite. I like that as your first name. Danette. And those are all great segments we'll talk about another time. But there's a term that I like to use once in a while. I don't know if you guys are familiar with it. Sowing the dragon's teeth.
Ooh.
It comes from the Greek myth of Jason and the Golden Fleece. So Cadmus, the mythical bringer of civilization, slew a dragon and then pulled out all its teeth. And Athena told him to spread them like seed on the ground. And from each tooth sprung a fully mature warrior that was fairly unpredictable. So,
not a dragon? Oh.
So the point of the allegory is that once you set a thing in motion, you may not really be able to control what that thing ultimately becomes.
Sure.
The insane and reckless Mormon doctrine of blood atonement is a perfect example of sowing the dragon's teeth. So not only is this insidious idea why the Utah Territory offered state-sanctioned decapitation as a legal remedy from 1851 to 1858, but it is the reason Utah offered the firing squad as a method of legal execution up until the same year MTV canceled the semi-reality hit TV show The Hills. So many accused men like Ronnie Lee Gardner, the guy who was shot for the last time in 2010, and more famously Gary Gilmore, whose death by firing squad in 1977 was the return to constitutionally allowed capital punishment in the entire U.S.
Right.
After a 20-year moratorium. They chose Utah's firing squad specifically for the promise of its eternally restorative powers in the face of their grievous sins.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Although I'm going to have to say that if I were to be executed, and I know that this will be a very unpopular position, I would rather be decapitated or shot than lethally injected.
I would do firing squad just because it's so romantic.
Right?
I don't think that's terribly controversial, given what's happened over the past few years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
decapitation actually sounds delightful.
Jesus. So I'll put that in the will, Dan.
Please do.
Dan's last will and testament. When I show up at the hospital with a guillotine.
Yeah.
No, it's in the paperwork.
As long as it's guillotine. Like, I don't want anybody hacking away with a javelin.
A javelin.
It would be ridiculous.
Got a 12-foot javelin in your little hospital room. God damn.
Fuck. Hitting the ceiling.
Stop squirming. Fuck. Don't hit him in the neck. It activates the nerve system. You got to get it in the...
So that, the capital punishment thing is fucked up enough to end it right there. But there are more dragony teeth.
Okay.
As we mentioned before on the show, one of Mormonism's draws to male converts is the democratization of direct revelation from God. So like a shit ton of early Mormon doctrines, modern Mormonism tries to downplay this concept, but it's there in the books for all to see. So this means that frequently grubby little men with delusions of grandeur, or worse yet, voices in their heads suddenly find out the identity of that voice. It's Jesus, directing them to action in a doctrinally sanctioned way. So in the mid-1970s, I'll be brief with these stories because they're awful. In the mid-1970s, a man named Joel LeBaron split off to found a more pure version of the faith, the polygamous Church of the Firstborn in the Fullness of Time.
You know, these Mormon offshoots get fun and creative with their names. I'm just going to say it.
Indeed.
Yeah, it's like Mormon bingo. It's just the words that Mormons use thrown at it. So he and his brother Ervil, that's his real name,
Ervil LeBaron,
disagreed about some shit, and a fugue of back and forth blood atoning broke out. Between 72 and 81, more than a dozen people were brutally killed and dozens more injured in this holy rivalry, which included Ervil LeBaron violently murdering his own pregnant daughter, then gleefully telling a witness, her blood has been atoned.
God damn it.
A few years after the LeBaron madness, brothers Ron and Dan Lafferty stepped in to fulfill more of this ghastly principle. In 1984, the two were attending yet another purified offshoot of Mormon whackness, a little study group called the School of the Prophets. They were getting hassled by their sister-in-law for dragging their other brother into their fundamentalism, so Dan Lafferty had a revelation and wrote it down by hand. After the events of July 24th, 1984, it was found in Ron Lafferty's shirt pocket. It read, "Thus saith the Lord unto my servants the prophets, it is my will and commandment that ye remove the following individuals in order that my work might go forward. For they have truly become obstacles in my path and will not allow my work to be stopped."
Man, Mormons get proficient in that awful, fake,
I know,
King James-y speech.
Elizabethan shit language.
Mormons get good at that stuff.
And it continued, "First thy brother's wife Brenda and her baby, then Chloe Lowe, and then Richard Stowe. And it is my will that they be removed in rapid succession, that an example be made of them, in order that the others might see the fate of those who fight against the true saints of God." Now, I don't remember who Chloe Lowe and Richard Stowe were, but luckily for them, the brothers were caught right after slitting the throats of their sister-in-law and their 15-month-old niece in her crib.
Yeah.
So lastly, there are many desert-dwelling clans of fundamentalist and polygamous Mormon offshoots. Like blood atonement and personal revelation, polygamy is a bedrock principle of foundational Mormonism. In fact, the polygamists, and you guys probably agree with me, and fundamentalists have a pretty solid claim to practicing Mormonism more in line with Joseph Smith's original teachings.
Most definitely.
Absolutely.
Than mainstream Mormons, based out of Salt Lake City. So the isolation of groups such as Warren Jeff's polygamist FLDS offshoot, their aggressive shunning of outsiders, not sending their children to public schools where outsiders might make records of their existence, and their insistence on their own police forces makes it nearly impossible to know how many recalcitrant members or young girls who simply refused to marry their elderly relatives may have been blood atoned.
Right.
In the vast emptiness of the desert in the past century, it's hard to say. But after the arrest and the conviction of Warren Jeffs for a metric fuck ton of sex crimes against children, a defector from the cult described being instructed by Jeffs to create a special secret furnace so hot that any DNA evidence remaining from blood atonement rituals could be destroyed.
Nothing suspicious about that.
No, that could be used for bread.
Yeah, you can say, I'd like to make me a kiln that I can do pottery in. It's got to be really hot.
It's got to be.
That sounds innocent.
It's got to be 6x3-ish.
Yeah, exactly.
And hot enough to kill DNA for the pottery.
For the pottery.
Right. And I like to push my pottery on a gurney right up to it. It's just, it makes it easier. So this was in the early 2000s that this request was made. Wow. So, like so many of the crazy problematic ideas and doctrines from their original founders and in their scripture, the official church has tried to put distance between themselves and blood atonement, saying they don't practice it anymore. And that they never really did, despite what Brigham Young said in conference. So this is a process made more difficult when constantly there are hard-right conservative Mormons in the State House trying to reintroduce the firing squad every couple years because of their belief in blood atonement. But the church still tries to distance itself. I don't know. This is kind of like the dragon's teeth. Once you throw this crazy shit with unaccountable men, out there. This is what you get. So
they're fancy, those murdering Mormons.
Yeah. So blood atonement, everybody, get some.
Go out there. Wait, don't do that.
I'm glad Joseph Smith is dead, by the way.
Don't.
Okay, we're going to take a break and javelin Uncle Doug, and we'll be right back.
All right, moving on.
Well, Uncle Mark,
yes,
we got Uncle Doug here. He's going to tell us about some stuff. I don't know what it's going to be.
I didn't see you guys there. You've caught me unawares.
Well, we do like to sneak into your bedroom and record.
Yes, because I sleep in the studio.
I feel like the one thing that most podcasts lack is that element of surprise.
Yeah, there's not enough sneak attack in atheist podcasting.
Anywho,
we're the first.
Yeah, that's right. We were pioneers. What do you got, Douglas?
Well, guys, I was driving around the other day, just as you do.
Sure.
And I saw a billboard that caught my eye. It's one of those billboards. You have seen these around, almost all of you, and we'll talk about why. Everyone.
Well, we have international listeners, so maybe some of them are spared this. This
is exclusively an American phenomenon. This billboard thing.
One hopes.
Yeah, I mean, this particular one anyway. So the one I saw just said there is capitalized is evidence for God, and then there's a picture of a baby, and there's a number, at 8554 truth. I was like, huh. So I just snapped a picture of it. I'm like, that's odd. So just got a wild hair, and I decided to call and kind of look into this thing.
Nice.
And there,
is this you leaving the show? You received the evidence via phone?
By y'all, motherfuckers. There's actually
I'm going to let you finish, but I want you to know that. No, I actually have called the number 2.
Oh, have you really?
Yeah.
It's a lovely little phone tree, isn't it?
Well, we can talk about.
So I'm on my own. I'm the only guy on the show anymore.
You're the only guy that doesn't know the truth about Jesus.
So it turns out there is a website called gospelbillboards.org.
Oh, wait a minute. So first, sorry.
Yeah.
What's the area code again? Is it like...
I think it's
855.
I think 855 is one of the...
It's like a 1-800.
Yeah, it's a toll-free number.
Yeah.
Right.
And so you call in, and it's got this phone tree, and it says, press 1 to hear about our billboards, press 2 to,
Hear about our billboards? You say you have the fucking proof. Get to it.
You get to a place in the phone tree where you can choose one of the billboards, and then it goes in and you listen to little testimonials.
Right.
Little descriptions of why we chose that theme. But
I love that God's going to deliver his truth from a dying advertising form
via movie phone.
Exactly.
Via a dying communications technology. You're killing it, Yahweh.
For time and temperature, press 1.
Totally.
At the tone, it's 10 o'clock.
Yeah. Any listener under 30 will have no idea what you're fucking talking about.
We should buy a bunch of these billboards and say that we'll send you a fax with the proof of God or a telegram.
There's a ton of these billboards. There's and I kind of printed off some. They're not terribly well done.
No.
And if you ever try and crack the code of Trump's tweets where he randomly capitalizes or all caps or, these things, the words are really bizarrely capitalized. Some are italicized, some are underlined, but not in any way that makes any kind of cohesive sense across the platforms.
It's a code.
Yeah. Like, discover is all caps, why Jesus created you. Who is Jesus? Jesus, your only way to God. And just on and on and on and on. So I was playing around on the phone tree, and then I got onto the website, and it turns out that gospelbillboards.org is an Anabaptist is run by an Anabaptist sect of a Mennonite of the Mennonite variety, not the Amish variety, obviously. Right. And they also operate Christian Aid Ministries, which I don't know if any of you guys have heard of before, but it's a Mennonite charitable organization.
Not to hear about it.
We're not going to talk a lot about that.
Yeah.
So, like I said, they're just the strangest billboards. There's a bunch. Jesus is your hope. Lust drags you down to hell. In the beginning, God created in all caps with a little Darwin monkey, evolving with an X over it.
Right. It doesn't say what he created. It just says he created.
He created.
They're very clever that way.
Yes.
Do you see what they did there?
They hate monkeys. Have you ever seen a Mennonite with a monkey? I don't fucking think so.
Holy shit.
I am now on my way. I have to book a flight to L.A. because I'm going to pitch Mennonite with a Monkey to all of the major networks.
Yeah.
There's going to be a bidding war.
Well, Roseanne got canceled. There's an opening.
There's a space.
Yeah.
Oh, there's free books available on the website. How Can Anyone Say God is Good? And then a ton of books.
Perfectly fair question.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
A ton of for sale books, including everything written by Ken Ham.
Right.
All his books are on there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and I actually tried. I guess I didn't realize I didn't know what religion Ken Ham was, and I kind of dug around.
He's not a Mennonite, is he?
He's not a Mennonite, but I couldn't really find what he was. He's just Christian fundamentalist and young Earth creationist.
Right.
Are all even on his site, on his own bio site. Really doesn't go into his anyway. He sure looks like a Mennonite though. So there's topics on the website as well that you can kind of dig into. Masturbation and sexual desire. Who is God?
How explicit is that particular? I'm just asking for a friend.
It also feels like maybe it's an instructional sort of thing.
Well,
Yeah.
So it's all you go. There's a ton of subjects you can there's a million of them you can go into.
Sure.
And they're all anecdote driven, and in the way that Christians tend to do, all the anecdotes are self-evidently bullshit.
Right.
Right. The curse of pornography. The anecdote starts out. Around 40 years ago, I picked up a truckload of material at a plant in Toronto. It was lunchtime, so I sat in the office where the shipping department workers gathered for their lunch break. Several other truck drivers were there, and so as often happens in setting like that, the conversation turned vulgar. Various men tried to outdo each other in describing the raunchiest, dirtiest scene they could come up with.
Oh, whatever.
They were discussing their favorite, quote, performers and some of the striptease sites they had seen in their favorite nightclubs. Eventually, the discussion became too
nightclubs.
Eventually, the discussion became too rancid for me to handle, and I stepped outside until lunch was over.
Oh,
Did not happen.
no.
Yeah, that was written by somebody who, if they've ever looked at porn, are so desperate to conceal it. But also,
Right.
it's like, it's like Mormons making liquor laws. They have no fucking clue what they're talking
Exactly.
about.
That is the worst Penthouse Forum story I've ever heard.
It goes on to say, pornography is a symptom of a deadly process that is destroying mankind, strangling us from the inside out. When men and women give complete rein to the base passions of their bodies, everything around them starts to degenerate. Men no longer respect the honor and beauty of womanhood. Instead, a woman's body becomes a commodity, something to vent their passions on and then throw aside. Women no longer admire the strength and the manliness of men as their protectors. Instead, they judge a man by the level of passion he can generate within them. Jesus. So,
That is such a hot mess.
it's all just boilerplate bullshit. Yeah. Okay, let's see. There's a...
Wait, where's the evidence?
Oh, well, I mean, I hate to break it to you.
Oh, okay, let's.
There's no evidence.
There's a picture of that baby, though, so that's pretty good.
Yeah, a photo of a baby.
I mean, you go into all of these subheadings, or you go into the phone tree, and what you get is just hogwash. You know, it's
Did you
nothing
ever
to see.
talk to a person?
I tried to, and I never got through to a person.
See,
you did?
I didn't bother with the phone tree at all. All I did was get myself to a person.
I couldn't find a person.
Finally got myself, and maybe it's a different billboard group. Or
No,
something.
I don't think it is.
I think it is the same.
Yeah.
It was the I think it was the monkey one that I called on. But I went and I talked to some old guy. I was like, "Cool, evidence for God, go."
Yeah.
And he was like, "Well, just if you read the Bible, you'll know that." And I was like, "No. You were
Evidence.
talking just so." And it was clear that this is just some guy in a congregation
Manning the phone.
Some old guy who just spends X amount of time volunteering.
Yeah.
Right, like a suicide hotline, but
They've given him nothing to work with.
No.
They've given him like maybe access to these bad stories or whatever, but they have not trained him at all. He was entirely unprepared for the conversation, and I ended up like 2 minutes in feeling so sorry for the guy that I didn't push it any further because there was like, it's just some schmo.
you didn't bring up the banana.
It's some old guy.
Yeah.
I was just like, oh, you have no idea how over your head you are in.
Exactly. And the declaratives in these billboards are like, we have the answer.
Yeah.
Call us. And there's no answer.
No.
There on the website, there's a section about abortion, which, surprise, there's an anecdote called Thursday at 5:00, and it starts, The nurse was businesslike, yet nice in a, quote, we would like to have your money sort of way.
Oh, right.
Read Jew right there.
Also, isn't that what business-like is?
Right, exactly. Don't worry about a thing, she said. The baby isn't even formed yet, and the uterus contains only some bloody material. We were in one of Florida's newest abortion clinics. My wife and I had decided to look into the possibility of an abortion. Our first pregnancy was somewhat unplanned, and neither of us felt ready to become parents. We were both engaged in jobs that had become lifestyles. Such was our devotion to the workaday world that we thought children only in the future, along with the house with the picket fence. And it goes on.
Of course, abortion clinics are all profit motivated, right?
Right.
That's money is the big motivation on an abortion.
And it of course is the journey of these couple discovering that their baby is a fully formed baby, and they don't have the abortion
because they'd gone into the clinic in the last half of the third trimester.
Exactly.
Right.
So, and that's
2 days before the due date.
And that would
this isn't working for me.
We decided nah.
Yeah. And of course, as all anti-abortion screeds do, it does talk about that, like, oh, it's okay to kill a baby 5 minutes before it's born.
Yeah.
Said
Right.
nobody ever.
Right.
So I kind of tried to find what the motivation was behind all of this, and there is a map that shows where all of the billboards they have put up across the country. Who knows how accurate or up to date this is?
Right.
But I printed off the map to show you guys. It is coast to coast.
They've plastered this whole nation.
Hundreds and
It looks like
hundreds,
hundreds
of these billboards in every state, in every population center across the country. So everyone of our listeners who is in the United States, you've seen one of these, whether you know it or not.
It's in Alaska.
Yeah.
They got one. They got it in Hawaii.
Yep.
Well, I mean, that's an enormous cost.
It's not nothing.
Right?
No, yeah.
So you think they'd have a better back end to it?
Well, and they absolutely want you to donate. There's donate buttons all over the website.
Sure, do that.
But I honestly think their motivation. I think they state their motivation is just to turn people back towards God. And I looked for something more devious, or that's devious enough, I suppose. But I think that really, truly, honestly, is they're just trying to get people.
It's probably a completely earnest attempt.
Absolutely.
yeah.
Although, wait, I'm going to challenge that, because here's the thing. If it were earnest, I would have gotten a better response. I think this is just like so many, you see a Jehovah's Witness on the street, or, somebody over here. What they're doing is they're broadcasting out their whole I love Jesus thing, you should too.
Yeah.
But they don't really, but that's the effort that they feel is worth it. Just saying it proves to God that they're sincere, that they're doing it, that they're whatever. They're not actually trying to convert anybody. These messages are not designed to convert anyone to Jesus from another religion or from non-religion.
You're saying this is to make themselves feel better.
It's to make themselves feel better.
I don't disagree with that.
There's nothing on any of these that's designed to say, to reach out to us, to our brains.
Yeah.
It's clearly just their own thinking.
Yeah.
That they've done no research about how to talk to us.
Right.
That's not what they're interested in. They're not actually interested in converting us. They're interested in being able to say to God in the final days, I tried.
Yeah, I shouted it from the rooftops.
I don't disagree with you at all. But I also think that they believe that the billboards and the phone tree and the stories is the truth.
Yeah.
They think that's the evidence.
Sure.
Because they say the Bible's true because the Bible says it's true. And part of what believers constantly do with Scripture, with the canon of whatever their religion is they mistake confusion and becoming baffled with truth. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The profusion of words and scriptures must be true somehow. Right? Because look at all the things it says and look at all the principles in here.
Well, look at all the people who believe it. Look at all the people who, it's been around for 2,000 years.
The people that religious people employ all these fallacies against successfully are themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And so this is every one of those anecdotes, guilt shaming.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Kink shaming.
Yep.
Misinformation.
But you're both absolutely right. And the Anabaptist Mennonite religion is down to about 4 million people, and it's kind of decreasing day by day.
I'm amazed it's that many.
It's not all in the U.S. Obviously, this sect is, but there's no stats and there's no anecdotes about anybody who's been converted by this. I don't think this is catching any fish.
No.
It's utterly unimpressive. Like you said, it's just pablum.
Yeah.
But the money, to
There's a
get these
considerable amount
billboards
of money
up is
in
a
this.
significant amount of money. What a colossal waste of money.
Yeah.
And it's all demographically too. It's like billboards, phone trees.
Yeah.
Who are they? They're talking to themselves.
Yeah.
Who
Yes.
are, people in their 60s and 70s, for whom that kind of stuff is effective.
They're screaming gleefully into the echo chamber.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or rather, they're screaming the things that have been echoing in the chamber to the rest of the world
Right.
with zero appreciable result.
Yeah, if there was some appreciable result, that would be the thing they feature on their website.
Absolutely. They would be bragging
ostensibly stay away
nonstop
from it.
about it.
Yeah. So I just thought it'd be fun to go down that rabbit hole,
Yeah.
and I did.
Yeah,
So-
well, go ahead and call the number if you also want to either hear boring messages or talk to a woefully underprepared person.
That's 855-4-TRUTH.
3 billboards outside of bullshit, Missouri. Let's move
All
on.
right, moving on. Hey, Uncle Mark.
I am present.
You are present and accounted for also. We basically, this show is free to all those who wish to partake of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
But some of them know that we put in a little bit of effort for this, and they want to show their appreciation monetarily.
Yes, and so they have, and so they continue to. And for the love we put out into the world, we're happy to get some splashed back on us. Is
Yes,
that gross? It might be.
I think it is, but I like it.
We're getting an explicit label on this episode. So.
Yes, indeed. So we have some folks to thank. People who have gone to our website and then gone to Patreon and decided to become a repeating donor to the show. Chad, we have to thank. We have to thank Elaine, Mary, and Jason.
Yes.
So thank all of you so much for your continuing support of the show. Other people who wish to support the show can go to howtoheretic.com and find much good content there, but also can find the Patreon link, and that will get you to a place where you can just shell out just a little bit.
Throw some coins at us like we're an attacker on a dark street. Yeah, just a handful of coins.
Or a busker.
Yeah.
In Berlin.
Yeah, just throw some cash at us if you can, and if you can or if you can't, if you just go to iTunes or any of the other pod blasters where you can rate your favorite uncles, please go there and do it, because mostly that just something algorithm more people here.
Yes, indeed.
So,
always 5 stars, because the truth isn't what's important. What's important is the rating. So,
yes, lie for us.
Yes,
we lie for you.
Yeah. If we are a 4-star show to you or a 3-star show to you, that's good enough to give us 5 stars.
Yes, or just listen and do nothing else.
Or just do nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Better that than a shitty rating.
All right, now that's established. Let's move on.
Let's move on.
Well, Uncle Doug.
What?
I'm sorry to bother you. We sometimes in our little show like to introduce ourselves to new people, new things.
It's important.
It's important to make
Networking.
to make new friends and judge them accordingly. And I think Uncle Dan is going to introduce us to some people, and then at the end we will judge them.
And throughout.
Okay, good.
You may judge as we go.
All right, apply judgment liberally.
Yeah, judge as you need to.
Yes, because we're atheists, and nowhere does it say we can't fucking judge whenever we want.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, and those who have been commanded not to judge, they do it anyway. So
Yes. They're among the most judgmental.
it seems to be just a human-y thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Today we're going to learn all about the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church.
Oh, there's just one.
Yes. Of course, you fellas know which church I'm talking about. Uncle Mark, do you want to?
I would.
The one holy Catholic. Uncle Doug knows. Go ahead.
Okay, so it was formed in 1987.
Yeah.
Right after the second season of Cheers wrapped up.
Whatever your answer, you're not wrong, because as lots of our listeners will know, they will recognize those words as part of the recited liturgy in literally so many of the churches. You got your Roman Catholic, both Latin and Eastern rites. You got your Eastern Orthodox, the Oriental Orthodox, the Church of the East, the Moravian Church, the Lutheran churches, the Methodist churches, the Anglican Communion, the Reformed Church, and a whole bunch of others.
Sweet Jesus, this is going to take all day.
They all claim to be the one holy Catholic and Apostolic Church.
Oh, is that true? They all claim it.
It's because that comes from the Nicene Creed. Which you guys will recognize, or perhaps more accurately, the Constantinopolitan Creed.
Yeah.
Which was originally written in the First Council of Nicaea in 325 and later amended.
I have a first edition.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
That's a good one to have, man. It was amended in 381 at the Second Ecumenical Council in Constantinople. Now, as you know, the Council of Nicaea was pretty important to the 300-plus-year-old, now very powerful religion of Christianity. Mm-hmm. It was convened by Roman Emperor Constantine I and made many important decisions about the codified beliefs of Christianity. Insightful rules like the prohibition of the presence of a younger woman in the house of a cleric to avoid suspicion.
They've stuck to that one.
Yeah, they're really solid on that. The prohibition of kneeling on Sundays or during Pentecost. And of course, and this is true, the prohibition of self-castration, which I think they've held to pretty damn well, because what the fuck?
We got to deal with this.
Well, we did in an earlier episode cover a Russian group that were very much into the removal of the tingly bits.
Well,
but they were kind of Christian, but I don't know if they were part of this tradition.
It seems that whole deal was used to be an issue.
And also, it seems like none of these things have held. So, good job, Council of Nicaea.
Right, yes,
De
indeed.
Constantinopolitantis.
The one thing that the Council of Nicaea didn't apparently do, despite everything I have ever read or heard in my entire fucking life, to the contrary, is the solidification of which books were and were not included in the Bible.
Oh. I always thought that too.
Right? Huh. My mind is fucking blown. I was doing this research and I had to look up 12 different things because I was like, no, I know that's not true. I know that it was the Council of Nicaea that did that. No, it happened a lot around that time, but it continued long past.
Well, they had weightier matters about kneeling.
And,
right.
Self-castration.
Yeah. They were dealing with the important stuff.
Right.
So somehow apparently that seems to be a myth that they solidified the Bible. Not sure how it could have happened. But apparently, it's Voltaire's fault. Or maybe Voltron's, I'm not sure.
Probably Voltron.
Maybe we'll go down that rabbit hole another time. Anywho, for a lot of years after that, Christianity was sort of loosely consolidated as a single religion, composed of mostly agreeing regional churches. There were some schisms in that timeline, like when the Egyptian church, the Patriarchate of Alexandria, split after the Council of Chalcedon. You guys all remember that stuff.
Yeah. Really good
that
council.
whole quagmire.
Yeah.
That was actually the formation of what is now known as the Oriental Orthodox Church. And what a hullabaloo that turned out to be.
There's going to be schisms.
But the big schism, the big split, came in 1064, or at least started then, known as the Great Schism, which sounds to me like a circus act. This was
magician.
Right. Yeah. Ta-da! Anyway, it should end with a ta-da. I think we can all agree on that. Whatever it ends up being, it should end with a ta-da. But this was when the Byzantine churches of the East, with much power still consolidated in Constantinople, clashed with those of the West based out of Rome. The main sticking point of this schism was a word that the Western Romans wanted to add to the Nicene Creed, which changed the origin of the Holy Ghost from having been created just by the God the Father to having proceeded from God the Father and the Son. Psych, that wasn't really why the schism happened, but several scholars say that's why it happened. It did actually occur, like the Latin word that they wanted to add was filioque, philoquity. No, it was filioque, which was just a Latin word meaning also by the Son, sort of thing. And you can look that up if you want to and go down yet another rabbit hole. But that was just sort of one of those excuses that the Byzantines used to schiz.
Why did they want to schiz so bad?
We'll get to the schiz. I mean,
all right.
but I mean, so the reason that they wanted to
why
schiz,
you got to schiz?
they're schizzing.
Yeah,
they're schizzing. But this was sort of that filioque thing was just like it was like one of those. Like when you want to break up with your boyfriend or girlfriend for a while, but there's no specific reason for it. It's just that you're not as happy as you could be. But
right.
You think that you'd sound like a dick if you broke up with them for that. So you wait until they do something sort of lame, but you would totally forgive them if you liked them more, and then you blame them for that thing.
That's exactly like that.
It's exactly like that.
Honey, this schism, it's about me.
It's
not about you.
It's not you.
We're schizzing because of me.
Look, filioque, or not, we're schizzing here. And the real reason for the schism was basically that the Pope in Rome was getting more and more powerful, and the Byzantine emperor was getting cut out of a lot of the decision making, and the Pope Rome was basically taking more and more of the power and consolidating it in Rome,
as Rome was wont to do,
as was their wont. Yes, indeed. So literally. It was all political, and we're going to get to more politics and stuff, because strangely, though you'd think that that's not the case, politics and religion seem to intertwine themselves.
No.
Hold up.
In this
Church
world.
and state.
Hold up.
Right? So even now, but back then it was a big deal, and so thus they skizzed, and this is the origin story of the Eastern Orthodox Church.
Oh.
And I guess what we now call the Catholic or Roman Catholic Church, but that's not what we're talking about today.
All right.
The Eastern Orthodox Church, which is what we call it because the more official title, the Orthodox Catholic Church, is super confusing. Although since the word Catholic comes from the Greek and not the Roman, maybe they actually have more of a right to it, but whatever.
Schism.
More skiz. More cowbell.
I schism. I declare schism.
I skiz you. No, I skiz you. The Orthodox Church is mainly located in Eastern Europe, Greece, and the Caucasus, a.k.a. Caucasia, which includes
would be your Georgia, your Armenia,
sure, your Russia, your Azerbaijan, if you're feeling
although
spicy.
That's a pretty Muslim-y.
Armenia is way more Christian-y.
Yeah, it's true, but all of these are. The Christians in these places are generally Orthodox.
Right. Very much so.
Eastern Orthodox. Like so many churches, including the one that we were subject to as children, Eastern Orthodoxy feel like they are the pure, real, straight-up OG Christians.
That's so bullshit.
They are the super-duper realist ones because they believe in the real Nicene Creed, not that bullshit with all that filioque stuff and you know, they have the real traditions, and they got the super straight dope.
No colossal waste of human effort there.
No, not at all. They maintain that and the way that they maintain this true Christianity is through holding to, quote, note the scare quotes, sacred tradition of organization and beliefs. So, you know, that means they know best. In today's world, the Eastern Orthodox Church is marked mainly by weird multi-crossed crosses and clergy with big beards and lots of funny hats and much better robes. Frankly, can we just talk?
They're pimping.
They are really killing it.
Yeah, I agree.
They've committed to a look for sure.
In the costume department, they are awesome.
They look like they belong teaching classes at Hogwarts. But yes,
yes, 1,000% yes, 100 times yes. The theological differences between them and the Roman Catholic Church are, at least to an outsider, almost non-existent.
Right.
They still reject the Pope, so that's one, I guess.
Yeah, but so do I.
That's what we have in common.
Right, yeah, exactly. And they reject the concept of a central guy with all the power, unless, of course, you're talking about the ecumenical patriarch of Constantinople. See, Eastern Orthodoxy is split up into patriarchates, which have dominion over sort of different regions. And the Patriarch of Constantinople, apparently nobody's...
What does Patricia Arquette have to do with this?
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And apparently nobody sang them the song about it being Istanbul now. That guy is considered, heavy scare quotes here, first among equals.
Jesus.
So, yeah, nothing at all like the Pope. Don't get confused.
Right.
We are not poping. There's no Pope here.
Right.
There's nothing to see here. That guy is now the current guy is Patriarch Bartholomew the First.
There has not been a Bartholomew in all this time.
No, not as
crazy.
I mean, and this is one of those things where. But by the way, this is not a pope, but he did rename himself this when he ascended to his patriarchy.
Gotcha.
So no pope.
Right.
Hashtag
not
no
a pope.
Nope.
Hashtag not a pope.
They choose and they use like orange smoke.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
from Nam.
Totally different. It's a totally different thing.
Hashtag not all popes.
Which, by the way, this guy, if you ever look at him, looks like. Usually he's wearing all black, so he looks kind of like Santa Claus masquerading as a nun.
Yeah.
It's kind of delightful.
He's Night Claus. Stealth Claus.
Yes, indeed. He's Venom Santa Claus. So here, this guy's actually pretty okay. He's known for like reaching out to other Christians and other religions, and for being super into environmentalism, that sort of thing.
Really?
I believe he actually prayed at the coffin of Pope John Paul II when he died.
Did he?
Yeah.
Is that this guy?
Yeah. Well, they brought a bunch of other Catholic
Guys with hats.
schismed religions in. Yeah, and they had a hat off.
It's always great when that happens. But yeah, this guy has reached out to the current pope a bunch of times and been seen with him, and is credited with sort of. I mean, the schiz is still going to be there, but
yeah.
at least they're buddies now.
How do you come back from that schiz?
You just you give it several centuries,
Right.
and then you golf with each other or whatever.
And then you wait for a pope from a country that the people who wrote your holy book didn't know existed because it was on the other side of the flat earth. And then
Right.
And then it's important that pope only have one lung.
Yeah,
Right. It's all there in Timothy.
yeah, right, exactly. And then you both go. You and that pope go hand in hand to a holy site in Israel.
Yes.
and invade that country. Part of what brought this up for me, part of why I wanted to bring up the Eastern Orthodox Church, which is again the same as the Catholic Church, just with different clothes,
Beardier.
a little beardier, is that I read a really interesting article, partly in research for a story that I did on Thank God I'm Atheist, but it's about how this article got into a lot of things, and part of that was how Fancy Bear, which is the name of the Russian spy
bot.
Oh
thing.
yeah.
spy network that hacked the Democratic Party and has been like meddling in American affairs.
Allegedly.
Also allegedly have been trying to hack the Eastern Orthodox Church and have been spying on them.
How do you hack
a lot?
parchment?
Oh, yeah, exactly.
How do you scroll?
How do you hack an 11th century organization that still hasn't upgraded?
These guys are because I mean, so the Orthodox Church kind of was dead in Russia for a while during
under communism,
communism and stuff, came back and became super buddy with the Russian government,
The oligarchy.
For a first ever in history, an autocrat found the religious structure in a country useful.
Right? Exactly. Never happened before.
In a first, people.
So weird. So now
That Vladimir is quite the innovator.
Right. So now and this didn't start with Putin, but it continues heavily with.
Oh
Putin.
yeah, he has definitely made that a program.
And so so this has been going on, and the Russian hackers are also trying to get inside information. I think because they want to root out, they want to make sure that they keep their power. Putin wants to make sure that he keeps his power within that organization and wants to find
compromise on the people inside.
He wants to stop
information.
possible schismizing.
Well, and wants to keep anybody who would speak out against him within the church under control.
Right, of course.
By under control, you mean dead.
Well,
you mean dead and radioactive.
Frequently, I mean dead. Yes, indeed. Not only has he... So, like, this hacking includes, like, insane phishing attempts. They, like, for instance, when the current Russian Orthodox Church got a new guy that was sort of director of communications, they literally... Or maybe it was the whole Orthodox Church.
They put a microphone in his beard.
They sent the hackers sent out an email to a whole bunch of Eastern Orthodox bigwigs that basically said, hi, that purported to be from this new director of communications and just said, here, by the way, click this link. It has a bunch of information for how to talk to the press and how to talk to this stuff. It was all in their kind of language.
Oh, wow.
It was all written really smart, and it basically installed malware on their computer that then they could track what was going on. Part of the reason for this is because there is a schism brewing.
Breaking news, everyone.
A new schism brewing.
Comes a schism.
Yeah.
Which is that the current...
We haven't had to use this graphic since 11/26.
Right, exactly. Literally, what's happening right now is that the Patriarchy of Ukraine wants to break away because currently, or rather, the Church of Ukraine wants to break away because currently they're under the Russian Patriarchy.
Right.
And they don't want to be.
Is there some rivalry between Ukraine and Russia?
Yeah, you wouldn't...
Yeah.
Who would have thunk it? They're good friends.
When did this happen?
They used to be unionized together in the Soviet Socialist
Very
Republic.
happily so, yeah.
Yeah, everybody was happy about that.
Yeah.
So the guys from Ukraine have been making trips to Turkey to talk to Bartholomew.
Yeah.
The guys from Russia have been making trips to Turkey to talk to Bartholomew. And soon, Bartholomew will be making a decision as to whether or not the Ukraine can have their own patriarchate. And if they do, Russia's threatening to schiz.
Wow. How much do I not want to be the new Ukrainian patriarch?
Yeah,
Right?
No
The life
doubt.
expectancy for that guy is going to
Seriously.
be
Right.
less than a ham sandwich.
They'll have to get through 6 or 7 before one of them takes.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't eat or drink anything.
Never
Right.
touch a doorknob, kid, whoever
Right.
you are.
Stand in the center of a room with your arms out in the dark for the rest of your life.
So anyway, that's kind of what's happening right now with the East. I mean, Eastern Orthodoxy encompasses, as we said, Greek and all these other things. But the most exciting is Eastern Orthodoxy right now is happening
I love a good schism.
between the Ukrainians and the Russians.
Well, stay tuned, folks. We'll see what shakes out.
Yeah, you might want to follow the story, see what happens.
It'll be fine, I'm sure. Whatever
No
happens.
one's going to get hurt.
What could happen? What could go wrong?
What's a schism between friends? All right.
So, exciting things happening in the world. They need another council or something.
Yeah, let's see if we can put that together for him. With the How to Heretic, we'll sponsor the next schism.
Yeah, here in Salt Lake. It'll
All
be
right.
great.
Let's move on.
There we go. Moving on.
Well, friends, that's it for this week's show.
Hey, we'd love to hear from you guys. Send us an email, howto@howtoheretic.com, if you've ever committed a blood atonement that you'd like to tell us about.
Or if you'd like to commit a new one and stab Uncle Dan through the heart with a javelin, you can call and leave me a voicemail. It's where we can work out the details at 903-88-HOW-TO, which is 903-884-6986. We're also on Twitter at HowToHeretic and, of course, Facebook.
Yep. Hey, thanks so much once again to our patrons. You are the wind beneath our wings.
And thanks to Cody Layton for editing the show.
And thank all of y'all for tuning in. We sure appreciate you.
Yes, indeed. Bye, friends.
Goodbye.